Hello everyone. How are you? I hope you guys are doing all right and you guys are taking necessary precautions. In case I'm audible, kindly reply or comment with a yes. All right. So, welcome to this special 2-day workshop organized by Geeks for Geeks so that you can build upon your Java skills and get a new insight on how Java works and new industry opportunities when it comes to Java. So, this is going to be a crazy workshop for you, and we have a super insightful session planned for you with Mr. Chamandeep Singh, who is a course mentor at Geeks for Geeks. And to all those people who think Java is their cup of coffee, pun intended, this is going to be super awesome for you. So, to all those people who haven't attended these kind of workshops before, uh, trust me, you will have a lot of fun, and you can call upon your friends till Mr. Chamandeep joins. You can call upon your friends, your roommates, maybe your wingmates, because we have a lot in store for you, and this is going to go for 2 days. So it's really going to be extra special. You'll get a good information of how Java system works. All right, and I have a very special request for you. I really need you to be very active in the comment section so that we can know where we are going wrong. In case there's any feedback for us, we would be happy to serve you. Also, I have attended a form link wherein you can put on your queries, and Mr. Chamandeep will try to answer them tomorrow in the Q&A session. The form is attached in the description below, so you guys can have a look at that as well. Also, I have attached the voting link wherein you can vote so that we can get to know you better. So, in case you have access to that voting link, you can start voting now. I'll share the screen so that you guys can see how what is the audience demographics. All right. All right, let's see. All right. Okay, so most of the people are working professionals from what I can see. That's great because Java actually acts as a very boost to your career and can entail you to new career opportunities as well. That's pretty great. All right. So we have more than 280 people live right now and only 70 votes. Come on, guys. I need you to be very active with this. To all those people who are asking about the recording, yes, recording will be available. But in case you need to ask something, in case you need to understand something live, this is the platform. The voting link is in the description below. Certificate would be available, but we promise you there would be much more than certificate. A good learning opportunity for you is right here at this corner. Uh, all right, so we have a good chunk amount of data to start the webinar, I suppose. And I can see Chamandeep live, so I'm just gonna add him to the stream. Hey Chamandeep, how's it going, man?
Hi, great.
So I think we have a warm audience over here, and they are very keen to learn about Java and maybe some new crazy stuff we have.
Definitely, we are going to learn some new skills or things. They might know, they might want know.
Yep, I think so. So, guys, it's again, if you have any queries, I have attached the form link below. You can start filling those queries. We will be answering them tomorrow in the second day. And anything else, Chamandeep, would you like to tell the users right now about yourself?
First of all, am I clearly audible? Am I audible to all? Uh, hello. Am I audible?
Uh, yep, I think you're audible. I think people, I've seen comments.
Okay. You have audio issues, lot of echo. 1 second, 1 second. Is it fine now?
Yes, I can see a lot of yes.
Okay. So let us just start then. Uh, Once again, let me share my screen.
So I'll stop the voting. This is the final link, I suppose.
So, is the screen visible?
So over to you, Chamandeep. Right?
Okay, the screen visible to all? Anything other than basics need to go this session. Okay. So let's just start then. In this 2 day workshops, what we have planned to cover. First of all, we will be going to cover a Java hoops because Java hoops is a thing which is mandatory to know in order if you are going to learn anything. One second. I think okay. So, so in these 2 days, first of all, we will going to cover Java hoops. Then we will be going to cover how the memory is being managed in the Java. After knowing that how memory is being managed in the Java, we will learn few things about Spring and Spring Boot. That why we have chosen them only to learn Spring and Spring Boot. Actually, I'm facing some issue. Screen not visible. Okay, one second. Is the screen visible now? Sir, the screen is not visible. I think it's visible. Okay. So let's just start then. Guys, I'm not able to view your comments. So, in case you have any question, just try to put this question in the link which is being shared with you. Okay. Okay. So let's just start. Uh, First of all, how we should learn development. The first question which comes in your mind is that how we should learn a development. Okay. So the idea behind the way we should learn development is that we should learn development by considering that we are building for ourselves, because in development what happens, there are many possible options which we can choose. Like if we have to choose a database, then there are many possible options. Like we can choose MySQL and PostgreSQL as well. So why we should consider MySQL only? So we should know that okay, these are the benefits of MySQL and these are the benefits of PostgreSQL, and we should choose MySQL for these benefits. Web development is all about trade-offs. Okay, so if we choose one kind of app software or an application or a service like MySQL, then we have to do some trade-offs with the other thing. Okay, so while developing anything, just consider that you are developing for yourself. When you consider that you are developing for yourself, then you try to choose best. When you consider that you are developing a things for someone else, then you will be going to pick a thing which will work, not the best. So keep this thing in your mind that whenever you're developing a something, just keep in mind that you are developing for yourself. So with this attitude we should learn a development. And the second thing which you should be good at is googling the stuff. This is the most important thing, because most of the times what happen, people uh, try to ask their mentors that okay, this is my doubt, what will the answer, how, what is the way to come out. So there are lot of options available on the uh, Google, which you can search for, and you will definitely going to get a answer over there only. So while learning development, have these attitude that if you stuck anywhere, try to Google it out first. And in case you will not able to find any answer, then we are happy to help. Okay, so let us just start then. Okay, let me check whether my screen is visible or not. Okay, fine. The first thing which we should consider is that why we should learn Java, right? We should be very precise or clear with this thing that we why we should learn Java. So I have seen the word poll you have taken currently, that most of you are working or either in a fourth year. So I think that your aim is to learn a language which is quite popular, right? Which have many jobs out there. So Java is a quite popular language and it have lot of jobs available in the market. So when you search over a LinkedIn, then you will find around many jobs. In whatsoever company wants to work, you will definitely gonna find a job related to Java development over there. So this is the reason why we should learn Java if you are aiming to work at a good company, and that's the only reason. Second thing, Java has a large community. Now, what is the benefit of having a large community? See, whenever we are going to start, then from where we are going to get help, because we cannot ask a mentor each small things. So out there on the Google or anywhere on GitHub, we have a large community. Okay, so large community is present over there in order to help us out. And the third thing is Java has powerful development tools. You will going to realize this point in the class when we are going to build a APIs. That how powerful tools are present out there for Java development. Okay. Uh, Most of you might know that Java is a platform independent. Why Java is a platform independent? Because Java runs on a JVM, and whenever we are going to code anything in Java, first of all, we are going to install a JDK in which JVM is present. So if we have JDK installed in a system, then it's fine that our application is going to run on that JDK. Okay. And the last thing is Java has a great documentation support. Now, if we want to build anything, we want a perfect guidance, like how we have to build this thing, right? So if we want to build a API, or if we want to use an API of some other person, then we need a proper documentation of the things which we should use and how we should use. So if proper documentation is not present, then it won't make sense to learn such a language. So these are the reasons why we should learn Java. Okay, I hope that this thing is quite clear to you, that why we should learn Java and how Java is helpful in our career. Okay. The next thing which I have planned to cover is Java Object Oriented Programming. Now, most of you have heard that Java is oriented towards objects, right? So if objects are there, how to handle those objects, and uh, what all ways are there in order to handle Java, and what are the terms which are related to Java objects, right? So the first term which we are going to cover is Java classes. Now see, classes are a kind of template. It won't occupy any space in your memory. Okay, if we have a memory in our system, class will not going to take any space in our memory. One second. Okay. So, so Java is a kind of blueprint or prototype which won't take any memory. It's just a kind of metadata. Okay. So how we can create classes in Java? This is a syntax in order to create a classes in Java. So these are called access modifiers in Java. If you want to cover these things, you can go through the Google. What are the access modifiers? One more request. I want all to have a pen and paper with you, so that in case I ask or say to you to read something, so you can read. Okay, you won't miss out till tomorrow's class. Okay, the first thing is access modifiers. These are the access modifiers. Okay, so try reading these access modifiers on your own, because this is quite simple. Now, how we can create classes? we can create classes in such a way. These all are properties of the classes. You might heard about these data types, right? Integers, strings, and all those. Integers are there, strings are there, characters are there. So all these are all these are primitive data types, and it is also present in Java as well. If you are coding in C or C++, it is derived from there only. So all these are properties, and we mention properties in such a way. After having a properties, we are having a methods over here. Method. What are role of methods? Like if a dog is there, what are the functions that dog will be going to do? Dog will be going to sleep. Dog can be hungry. So these are the functions which dog is going to possess. So methods are known as functions which are dog is carrying. What is this? Why this thing is used in a class in order to create a class? 1 second, let me create this. What is this? Now you're having a template with you. There must be a case when you have to create an instance of this template, right? If you're going to use this class in your application, then you have to create an instance of this template which have actual which occupies a space in the memory, right? So how would you create an instance of this class? So with the help of this thing which is known as constructor, you are going to create a instance of uh, classes. So this is known as default constructor. We can have a parameterized constructor as well. What do you mean by what does parameterized constructor means? Parameterized constructor means that you can have a parameters over here. Suppose you want to create an instance with the initialized properties. Like you have to pass the age at the creation of the dog. So you can have a constructor like this as well. Okay. So over here you can mention that okay, this dot age is equals to a. In this way you can create a parameterized constructor as well. But in case you are using a parameterized constructor, then this constructor will not be used. Just keep this in your mind. If you are creating a parameterized constructor, then you are overriding this constructor. If you want to have a this constructor in your application in your class as well, so you have to mention it explicitly. Okay. So I hope so. The structure of class or a template is clear to you, guys. Okay. So now we are familiar with classes. Now how to create an instance of these classes? In this way. Objects can be defined as an instance of class. Like instance is a template in a instance is a template. And if we want to use this template in our application, we can create an instance of this object. When we create an instance of this object, suppose this is a memory. This is a actual memory. Then when we create an instance of this create an instance of class, then a space will be allocated to this template. Okay, the instance of this template would be created in a memory. So this is what objects are known, and there are two ways to create instances. The first one is by using a default constructor. Here we are using a default constructor, and here we are using a parameterized constructor, as I have taught you in a previous slide. Okay, so this is a way how we can create objects in our application. Okay. Now, what does inheritance means? In a lame language, what does inheritance means? Inheritance means having a properties which our elders have, right? Like I am having a property that of something which my parent or father might be having. So these are the inheritance. Like I have inherited these properties from my upper generation. So in the same way, if we have class A, then can class B also have a properties of A? Yes. Suppose we are having a class over here with certain properties, then we can create a class B with all these properties by default, which will be going to have all these properties by default. We don't need to mention anything over there in this class. So what all properties are present over there, these will be carried out over here as well. Okay, so this is known as inheritance. Object acquire all the properties and behavior known as inheritance from the upper generation. Why it is being used? So that we can use a code which we have defined earlier. So if we are creating a class, all these properties here as well, then it will lead to a bad code, right? So that's why we use inheritance in our application. And how we use inheritance in application? By using this extend keyword. If you want to have a properties of a class, properties and methods of a class in me as well, then I will be going to write extends a. Okay, one second. In this way we can create a instances. One thing to keep in mind is Java won't allow multiple inheritance. Now consider, one second, let me raise this thing. Now, why Java won't allow multiple inheritance? This is a question which we need to answer. Suppose there are two classes, A and B. Suppose A is having a property name as age, and B is also having a property name as age. Now, here, age have some other function, and here age is having some other function. Okay, we have named it as age. It can be different as well. Now, there is a class C which is going to extend these classes. A extend B. Why we won't allow multiple inheritance in Java? Because it leads to a confusion, ambiguity. Like from which parent class I'm going to have this property named as age. So this is the main reason why we won't allow multiple inheritance in Java. Rest Java also have all the inheritance which C and C, all the other languages have, like hybrid inheritance and all those things. Okay. After inheritance, we are having abstraction. Now, what is abstraction? What does abstraction means to? Right. So abstraction is basically hiding the details. Like if we are having a, it's a very common example which all discussed. Like if we are having a car, then we won't know the internal properties which car is having, like how the engine is made and all those things, right? So this is also applicable to the code or applications as well, that we won't have one second, one second. And then we can inherit it. Okay. So abstraction basically means hiding the internal details and only showing the relevant details to the user. So how we achieve abstraction in our code, right? So there are two ways to achieve abstraction in our application. The first one is interface, and the second one is abstract classes. The second one is abstract. The main difference, one second, I'm coming back in a moment. One second. One second. I'm coming back in a moment. हाँ अब मेरी क्लास कर रही है भाई अरे करवा दे जो करवाना करवा दे अबे 19 अरे कुछ भी करवाना Yes, Suman, you are right that we cannot create a instance of these classes. Program explanation. Okay. So Vishnu, see, we cannot have a code of each thing. If we are having a code of each and everything, then it will going to take a lot of. Then we are going end up like we will going to end up in discussing Java oops only. Our main motive is to learn a development and Java. Why we are discussing a Java oops? So that you have a basic idea that if we are using a interface, then what is an interface, and what if we are using a abstract classes in our application, then what are the abstract classes? Okay. Okay. So in case you are having any doubt, you can share over that link which is being shared by Siddharth with you guys. Okay. So these are the abstraction. Abstraction basically means hiding the details. The first way of hiding the details is 1 second. Why it is not working now? 1 second. One second here. I'm facing some issues. Okay, it's fine now. Oh, so what is the difference between these two? Now, in the interface, we cannot have a definition of a functions which we will be going to define. And in the abstract class, we can have a mix of both. Like we can have a functions with a definition, and we can have a functions with the abstract keyword. Like what are the functions which will be going to implemented by the class which is going to extend or implement these two. Okay. So just keep this thing in mind. Or if you want a proper code, you can again Google over the you can Google, and the first link will be of Geeks for Geeks, and you can see the code over there as well. Okay, it's not a big deal. It's a small concept only. Huh. Okay. Now keep one thing in your mind. Whenever you will be going to face an interview, and interview will be going to ask these things only, like what is abstract, what do you mean by abstraction, what do you mean by inheritance, and sometimes people stuck in these small things also. So that's why I am covering these small things now, and in case you want a proper code, then you can go over the Geeks for Geeks site, and proper codes are available over there as well. Okay. Huh. So now let us discuss about polymorphism. What is a polymorphism? The name is itself enough. Many forms. Like if anything is having a many form, then it is known as for polymorphism. An example of a polymorphism is a person at the same time can have a different characteristics. Like a man can be a father, husband, or employee, but it depends on who is calling them, right? So it depends on situations. So this is a basic example of polymorphism, and polymorphism is of two types. The first one is compile time, and second one is of runtime. The compile time polymorphism is the one which bound with the functionality at the compile time, which kind of polymorphism happens at the compile time. Or if you won't understand by this lame definition, what happens? This type of polymorphism is known as compile time polymorphism. For example, in a class, sorry for these disturbances because some construction work is going nearby. So over here, we are having if we are having a class, consider we having a class A. Now in this class A, we can have a function named as void function, right? Now, can we have a function with the same name? Again, yes, we can have a function with the same name, but the parameter inside it should be different, or it should be different in numbers. Like over here, in these two cases, we are having a parameters with different initialization. Like if this is int and this is char. If some thing is if the situation is like this, then it is known as compile time polymorphism, or it is known as overloading. to be precise, it is known as overloading because we are overloading a function. We are creating a function with the same name again and again. What the difference between two is these parameters. And if we are having a different number of parameters, then also it leads to a function overloading only. In case we have function overloading in a class, then it is known as compile time polymorphism. And what is the runtime polymorphism? Suppose we are having a class A. We are having a class A. And we are also having a class B over here, which is extending a class A. Now B will be also going to have all the functions over here, right? One second. Now over here we are having this function class A, or we here we are having a function which is having some functionality over here, right? So consider there is some class B which is extending this function and again writing this function over here as well, word function. Then when we are writing same function in a class which is extending the parent class, then it is known as overriding, that we are defining this function against as per my needs. So this is known as function overriding. And when function overriding happens, this is known as runtime polymorphism. And this is one example of runtime polymorphism. And one more thing, many times you will be going to see this type of situation, like if these are the two classes, there is class A and B extending A, then we can create an object of B in such a way that we can write A object is equals to new uh, subclass, that is B. So this is a way which you will be going to see many times in the codes. And why this way is being used? Because if you are aware of design patterns, then there's a design pattern known as factory pattern. In that pattern, it is being used. In case you are not familiar with the design pattern, it's not a big deal. You can understand this in this way. Suppose there is class A, and there are many classes B, C, D, and E, and all of them are extending these classes. Okay. Now, if we have to create an array of these classes, then how would we create an array of these classes? Because array is created by defining the type in over here. If we define a type as B, C, or D, E, then it will be going to store this type of objects only. If we want to store objects of all these classes, then how we will be going to create a array? We will be going to create an array in such a way that it will be going to hold a type of objects. Okay. I think that you are aware that how you can create a arrays in Java. It is similar to the one in C and C++. Like if you want to create an array over here, you can create an array in this way. A new A. Okay, so it can store all the objects of all these classes. Okay. One second. Please, guys, please don't spam the chat section. I will not be able to reply to the questions which people are asking me. Okay. So this is what known as polymorphism. The last thing is encapsulation. What is encapsulation? Encapsulation basically means the hiding the internal details. If we want to hide the details of our class, then how we can hide? Like example is given over, a capsule is wrapped with different medicines, right? We don't know that what is inside the capsule. In the same way, if we want to create a class that functions well, but people should not know that what is inside that class, then we can do that by having this keyword in our class. Okay, so this is all known as encapsulation, like hiding the details and hiding or binding, wrapping the data into the class only. Like if class is having these properties, then these properties should remain inside this class only. It should not go outside this class. No one else beyond this class can use these properties. Then encapsulation is being used, and how encapsulation is used by using this private keyword. So these are the main concepts which we generally use in a web development, and people might get confused that okay, why we are doing so. And in the interviews, no one is going to ask you that okay, tell me the syntax of this thing, tell me the syntax of that thing, because it is being considered that syntax can be easily available over the internet. Everyone is going to check your concepts, that how well you are, how good are good you are at your concepts. Okay, so people don't generally consider the syntax in your application. Okay, now we are familiar with the oops concepts, right? Now the thing with which most of the people are confused is this static keyword. Many times when it is being asked to the student in an interview, even student won't answer this static properties about this static keyword easily or efficiently or in a correct way. So what is this static keyword? See, static keyword is in Java is used for defining the class level thing. Now what does this mean? In a simple terms, whatever is declared as static is being initialized in a memory once only. Suppose here we are having a heap and here we are having a class A. Okay. Now it is having a property name as again age. It is having a property named as age. Now when we are going to create an instance of this class, then a separate memory will be going to allocate to those instances, right? So if we create a 4 instances of this class, then there are 4 age variables over here. But in case if there is such a situation that we want this variable to be same in all the classes, then what we can do, we can provide a static keyword over here. And what does this static will be going to do? Static will be going to pick all these variables from here and allocate a single memory to this variable. So this is a role of static keyword, that it defines the variable only once. Okay. Now, I hope you got a basic idea what is a static. Now, static can be used with blocks, variables, nested classes, and methods. Now, let us discuss how the static can be used with variables and what are the constraints which static applies to the variable or method or all these things. Okay. So the first thing which we should consider is a static block. Now, once the question is being asked to me in an interview that how you can print how you can print high without using a main method. You are not having a main method in your class, then but you need to print this high method. Then how you can do so? I think most of you might don't know that it can be done using a static block. What is the static block? If we write a static block over here, it is being executed before the execution of main in JVM. Okay, the static blocks, the first task of a JVM is to load these static blocks. So if you will be going to write this block over there in your class or a code, then it will be going to execute it first before even the main method loads. So if you are not having a main method in your class, then how we will be going to print anything? Using this static block. Okay. So what is the function of static block? Static blocks is called before anything in a Java. If you are having a 2 or more static blocks in your application, then all of these blocks are going to be executed sequentially. Okay. So if we have written these static blocks, then it will be going to be executed sequentially only. The second thing is Java static variables. Now, what are the static variables? I have explained this in a static definition only, but let us discuss about these once again. Variable declared as static. If the variable is declared as static, then a single copy of variable is created and shared among all the objects. I hope this thing is clear to you. because I have taken the example in a static definition only. Okay, we can create a static variable at a class level only. What does this means? These are the points why I'm discussing these things which you know earlier as well, so that you can know these points which you might not know earlier. Okay, so we create a static variables at class level only. Why we are usually create a static variable at class level only? Have you ever seen, suppose if we are having a main function over here, let us consider we are having a main function over here. Have you ever seen, if you code in Java, if you are not familiar with the codes of Java, then it's not a big deal. You can go and see how the Java codes look, or I can show you guys as well. Suppose this is a uh, code over here. Now, ma- have you ever seen a static variable written over here? If not, then why? Why you have never seen a static variable written in a main method? Because what is the purpose of static? To create a variable at a class level, so that if instances are going to be created for this class, then each class will be going to share this variable only. Okay, so if you declare it inside a function, main is also a function, right? So what does that mean? It won't make any sense, right? No one is going to create a instance of the functions, right? So we always create the instance of classes. And if we want to we want classes to share a thing, then we declare these variables as a at a class level, sorry, at a class level only. Okay, okay, now you're familiar with this thing also. And if there are more than two static variables, or there are static blocks and static variables also present over there, then all of that are going to be executed in a sequential manner. Okay, static methods. The most common, as I have said also, the main is a method which is static. Now, what does this mean? Why we create a methods as a static? You will going to realize in a while when we are going to discuss a singleton pattern in a while. Okay, so the main idea behind declaring a function as static is that, let us consider of example first. Have you ever used math.max? Let me check over the comments. How many of you have used this? Okay, how many of you have used math.max or anything like this? No one is replying in the over the comments. Okay, so you have used. Okay, okay. So how we can use a function of this class without creating an instance of this class? It can be done using this static methods. Okay, so if we want to use any functions of let this sound be shut down. Okay. So if we want to use a function of this class, if there is a class known as maths and it is having a function known as max, and if we want to use this function of this class without creating an instance of this class, then we declare this method as static method. Okay. So this is the main reason why we declare method as static, so that we can use that method without creating an instance of that method, that class. Okay, so there are several restrictions also with these methods. The first one is they can only directly call other static methods only if I'm having a static method over here, or we, in simple terms, I can explain in this way. If we are calling a static function, right, then it can be done in a static methods only. We cannot use a static method in a class which is not a in a sorry in a function which is not static. For example, if we are having a function like this, public void of function over here, we cannot use a static method over here. We cannot use math.max over here. Okay. Okay. So this is the main reason why we bound to use a static method in a static methods only. They can call, they can, there is a way out to this as well. We will be going to discuss when we are going to talk about creation of a REST APIs. Okay. Okay, only static data, the same thing. If we are using static class, static functions, or static data, then myself should also be a static. Okay, if I am static, then I can use this static method and static functions over here. We cannot use this and super keywords in the static method. Why we cannot use? Because static is, if we define anything as static, then it is defined only once for all the instances, right? And this refers to the particular instance. If we are creating an instance of class, and if we are using a this in over here, this refers to this instance of that class. And if we are having any function as static, then we cannot, this won't make any sense, right? Because static cannot refers to any instance. Okay, so this is the main reason why we want to use this and super keyword in a static methods. The last thing about the static is static nested classes. First thing we should know that we cannot declare a outer class as static. It is not allowed. If this is not allowed, then how we can create an internal class as static? Static class B inside this. Anyone having any idea about this? We generally use static methods. I have given an example of math.max, that this is a static method. If there is a class known as math, then there is a function inside a math class which we use. So in such scenarios, we create functions as static so that it can be used without creating instance of that class. And the question answer to that question, where static variables are stored, uh, I'm going to answer that question in a Java memory management. Okay. Okay. See, there is one design pattern. If you are not aware of this design pattern, then I would suggest you guys to just go through a builder design pattern. Then you will going to get a clear idea why we use static nested class only. Okay. So if we want to create an instance of this class without using a new keyword, then how we can create an instance of this class, outer class? So this is a task for you guys. Just try to create an instance of this outer class without using a new keyword in the main function. Okay. So if you are able to do so, then you will be able to recognize why nested classes are used. Okay. And builder pattern. Again, I'm saying that builder design pattern. In builder design pattern, these nested classes are used. And why I am not discussing a builder design pattern, because it itself will be going to take a half an hour for me. Just try to go through the design pattern once. Okay, so we have discussed about nested classes. Actually, I have given you a task of gathering information about nest. Why we declare a nested class as static? Okay, so it's your task. In case you have any doubt, just mention it in your query so that if when I am going to take your doubts of you guys, then I can discuss or I can explain why this thing happens. Beg me a pardon. Sorry for the noises which coming from the. Okay, so these are the reasons why we use static variable. I hope if someone asks you about a static variable or static blocks or anything about static, now you can answer, right? Okay, so if you are comfortable with this static keyword, now we can discuss what is a singleton design pattern. Okay, so trust me, understand this design pattern, else you will be going to face many issues in the development. Okay, so this design pattern is mostly being used in web development. So what is a singleton class or singleton design pattern? Just consider one example. Suppose I want to fetch some data from the database. I want to fetch some data from the database. Now I am having class over here. I am having many classes over here. A, B, C. Now all of these wants to fetch data from the database. And when you want to fetch the data from the database, you have to create a connector class over here, right? So this class is a connector class which connects you with the database. Now, if A also create an instance of this connector class and connects to the database, and B also create a connector class, and C also creates, then it won't make any sense, right? The creation of connector class is of no use. Again, the again and again creation of connector class is of no use. If we create a single instance of this connector class and ask everyone to use this instance only, then it make a lot more sense, right? So this is why singleton design patterns are used, so that single class can be used by many other instance of this class. Single instance of this connector class can be used by many other classes. So this is the main aim why we use singleton pattern in our applications, so that a single, if there is a functionality which is being implemented again and again, then it can be implemented once only. A singleton class is a class that have only one object or an instance, as I have explained. To design a singleton pattern, this is a question which can be asked to you guys about a singleton design pattern. That how you can create a instance of, how you can create an how to design a singleton class. Just keep these things in your mind. Make constructor private. If you make constructor private, then how you will be going to create object of this class? Because in while creation of this while creation of instance of this class, you are going to use this constructor. If you make this private only, then how you are going to make use of this constructor? So this will be going to answer. Write a static method that returns the type of object of singleton class. So in case you won't understand this point, it will be clear with the help of this example over here. Now, consider we are having a singleton class over here. Now in this class, we are having a object of this type only, a singleton type only, which is initialized to. So we are having a singleton variable. Let us name it as variable only, which is pointing to null initially. Okay, so we are having one property as string. This is a constructor. This is a constructor over here. See, we mentioned the constructor as private over here. Now, how would we create a object of this class? So we can create an object of this class using this method of this singleton class. Uh, Someone have asked that where we use static methods. If we define a static method in a class, here this is an example where we use an instance of singleton methods in a main function. Now, initially, s is pointing to null, right? So what we have done, we have created an instance of, we have called this function. So when we call this function, singleton dot get instance. If this function or a method is static, then we can uh, call this method without creating an instance of this class. Okay. So we have called this method. When we have called this method, the command comes over here. And first of all, what is being checked? A single instance is null or not. Yes, it is null. Then create an instance of this class over here. Okay, if the class is being created, let us assume that the address of this class comes over here, and s is pointing to that address now. And return singleton instance from here. Now X is having a object of singleton class, right? Now it's fine. In this way, we can create a instance of a class whose constructor is private. This is fine. Now, if someone else, suppose if we are having a singleton y is equals to same singleton dot get instance. Now, do this y is going to get a same instance which is there with x, or a new instance of this class will be created? The answer is x y will be also going to get this instance only. Why? Because in this class, in this method, first of all we are going to check, is this null? No, this is not null. Then what we have to do? Just return the instance which is created earlier. So this class will be going to return this instance to y also. In this way, we create a single instance of any class, and if other classes also wants to use this instance, then they are going to use this instance only. Okay, in this way, a single instance can be created for a multiple classes. Is this clear to all? Yes, it will be going to point to a same object only. Yes. You are going to get example of this singleton pattern. When we are going to discuss about development, we are also going to discuss about development. So these are the basics which are being used in development. That's why I also can repeat once more static method in singleton. Sure. See, why we are using a static method over here? The function of static method is to create an instance of this class only. If initially the s is null, then it will be going to create a new instance. That means it will be going to create a object of this singleton type in a memory. Okay, now we are having an object in the memory, and it will point single instance to this and return this instance to the x. Now when again y is going to call this instance, sorry, this method, then now this s is pointing to this object in a memory, right? Now when s is pointing to this object in a memory, it won't go in this is in this if clause, right? And what will happen? It will be going to return this object only from here. In this way, if multiple times this method is being called, then it will be going to return that same instance to all the classes which are calling these classes of method which is calling these static instance in this calling this method. Okay, I hope the singleton design pattern is clear to you, because this is, trust me, this is this carry is very important. Many times it is being asked in interviews. Okay, if you are clear with a singleton design pattern. Now the time is to discuss about if we have declared something in Java, then how we can keep that thing same, how we can restrict other person to change that variable by using final keyword. If we use final keyword, then we can constrain other person to don't want change this method variable or any other thing. One second. Yes. Now again, first of all, let us go through the definition. The final keyword is used to restrict the users to change the data. Okay. So now again, final can be used with variable, method, and classes. Now, when the final is being used with a variable, what is the benefit of using a final keyword with a variable? To create a constant variable, so that other person or object or a class cannot change this variable, the value of this variable. So this is the reason why we mention final with the final keyword before this variable, before any variable. And one more thing, if we create any variable final a over here, then only once the value can be initialized to this variable. It- there is a possibility to initialize the value to this variable only once. But if we again try to initialize this variable, then it will be going to give us a error. Just keep this thing in your mind. Why we declare methods as final? Because as we have seen in runtime polymorphism, there is a method overriding in the inheritance, right? In order to avoid that thing, we define a method as final. If we declare any method as final, then if the class, any class is going to extend me, then it can, that particular class which is extending me cannot override the method which I have declared as final. So this mostly happens in a this hap- we can consider an example of a bank can have this final method of interest, like they have some policy that okay, so if some branch is going to open under me, then it must be having this interest only, it cannot manipulate this function of me. So when then we are going to declare that method as final. And why, and when we use final with the classes, when we don't want anyone to extend me also. A great example of this is, you might have heard that strings are immutable in Java, right? Strings are immutable in Java. Now, how the implementation of string class will be has been done? It has been done using this final method. Why? Because if we declare a class as final, then we cannot change the implementation of a string class. We cannot extend string class and write a new definition for ourselves. Okay, so this is the why we declare final with the classes, so that no one can change the functionality of me, or no one else can extend me. I hope this final keyword is also clear to you guys. Now we are familiar with Java OOPs, a static keyword and a final keyword. Now time is to discuss about Java memory management. This is the last topic which we are going to discuss in a Java. After this, we are going to discuss the topic things related to our development. And after discussing the things about development and like what are the terms, why we use Spring and all those things, we are going to shift on the hands-on practice. Okay. Now, if we are going to discuss about Java memory management, then what is the reason of discussing Java memory management? Why even we bother about discussing Java memory management? Because it is not our role. You might have heard that garbage collector is there in Java, which is going to manage this memory. Because garbage collection doesn't guarantee everything. If we are not familiar with how memory is being managed in our application, then sometime this error will be going to occur, that that particular thing is being not managed by the garbage collector, and that thing will be going to give you out of memory error, in which you get I am not able to recognize what is the exact name of that error, but something like out of heap, memory out of heap, something like that. So you are going to get that error in your application. So in order to understand this thing or remove that error, we must be familiar with this thing, that how the memory is being managed in Java. Now, whenever the control of whenever the Java application is going to run, there are two things which will be created. The first thing is stack, and the second thing is heap. Now, what is this stack and what is this heap? Now, suppose there, I know, I'm considering that you know a bit about thread, not everything about threads, a bit about threads. Okay. Or if you want to know about thread, then it is not a big deal. Okay. It is not a big deal. So whenever you are going to run an application, then a stack would be created for that application, and a memory is being initialized to that applications. Like for example, if we run any program, then stack for that program will be created, and heap is also being created, in which the arrays and all those stuff are going to be stored. Okay, so these are the two terms which are related to the Java memory management, and we are going to discuss these two terms separately. First of all, what is a JVM stacks? A stack is created at the same time when a thread is created. If you want to understand thread, just consider it as when you run your application. It used to store data and partial result which will be needed in returning a value to performing a dynamic link. If you want to understand this point, just look over here. If we create a variable if we create a variable array of type int in our application, new int, let us consider it's of size 10, then this variable is being stored over here, arr, and it is going to point a instance of this. Here we are creating an instance of this class, right? So it is pointing to the instance which is being stored in a heap. So stack is being used to hold this variable names and over here. Okay, so where it is being written, stack is in choosing storing data and partial results. Okay, so it is being used to store a data. Stack can either be a fixed or dynamic. It is being initialized when you run your program, and it can be of any size. And it is being defined by your JVM or your application to the JVM. The size of a stack can be chosen independently when it is created. The memory of a stack is need to be contiguous. These are points which you need to keep in your mind. And one more thing which I forgot to tell you when we have started discussing about JVM Java memory management. First of all, before the execution of any program, JVM itself is a piece of code, right? Our code runs on this JVM, and this JVM is also a piece of code. If JVM is going to run, okay, now we have a limited space with us. We have a limited space with us. Now, when this JVM is going to run, it is going to occupy the space in a memory, right? Now, if the space occupied by this JVM is not being cleared, then it itself is going to occupy a lot of space. So that is the main reason why we need a garbage collection in Java, so that the space which is being used by Java JVM, it can be cleared or and can be used by application which is running. Okay, so this is the main reason why we have garbage collection in our application. Now, if you are familiar with stacks, I have explained over here only that when we run any application, and if something like this is written in our application, then variable names comes over here in the stack, and instance the space to this instance will be created in a memory or a heap, to be precise. It is shared runtime data and stores the actual object in memory. That is, it is the same point which I have explained earlier. The memory is allocated to an instance in classes. Okay, whenever we are going to run use a new keyword while creating an instance of any object, then the space will be allocated to that instance in a heap only. Okay, and heap allows to share the same instance as we are using in a singleton design pattern. We are using the same instance of class. If something known as heap is not being there, then consider there are two heaps. There are two places which we where we are storing a data. One here and another one is here. Then we create an instance of this class, right? Now, how would we recognize that okay, this instance is present over here and other is not present over here? The reason being that heap allows the sharing of data. Okay, because there is only one place to store data, and if you want to find anything, it is going to present over here only. Is there any doubt? Okay. Index out of bound, out of memory. Yes, 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 out of bound, out of memory error. If in case your question is being not answered, your question is not being answered by me currently, please try to pose that question in a tomorrow's Q&A session, for the tomorrow's Q&A session. Okay. Now I think so. Heaps is also clear to you. In short, you can keep this thing in your mind that whenever you run a program, there are two things which are being created. First one is stack, and another one is heap. Heap will be going to same for all the stacks which are being created. If you are familiar with threads, then multiple stacks can be created, but heap would be created once only. All these stacks will be going to use this heap only. You can keep such a thing in your mind if you want to remember this. Now, we know that garbage collection is there, but how garbage collector is implemented, right? So now let us consider we are having this stack over here. Here is a B, C variable. Now this is pointing to this. This is pointing to this instance. This is pointing to this instance. There are some variables. Okay. Now we write a statement something like this. C is equals to B. What does this mean? This means that we have broken this connection over here and we have initialized or make this pointer to move over here. Now no one is pointing to this instance, right? Is it any useful to keep that instance in our memory? It is a kind of waste for us, right? So something must be there which should clear this waste, right? And that is Java collector. So first of all, what happens? Every thread which is being executed is paused. Then live references basically means the connections are being checked. If the connection is there, it is being marked as alive. Let me use this color. It is being marked as alive, and it let us consider that it is being marked as dead. Now no one is pointing to this instance, right? So after this step, what happens? Complete scan of this memory is being done, and whichsoever instance is being recognized as dead, that is being removed from the memory. Okay. Now if this is being removed from the memory in this step, now there is some space which could arise over here. For example, initially consider A is present over both of these are pointing to these. This is being removed by Java collector. Now these two object needs to be contiguous in order to work efficiently, right? So how does that happen? it is also being managed by Java collector. So now in this way, Java collector works. Now, can anyone think that how out of these steps, which steps should be run in parallel and which should be synchronized or run in a continuous manner? Just try to think. Out of these steps, which should be done in parallel and which should be continuous? Okay, I won't find any answer in the chat. So these three steps are can run in parallel. These steps can run in parallel, and these two steps run in synchronized fashion, or these two steps are synchronized. That means first this step will be going to happen, then this step will be going to happen. So if someone asks you to implement a garbage collector on your own, then just try to follow these five steps. Okay. Okay, so before starting things about web development, I just want to ask a question, or ask, not ask, just want to give you a question which you have to Google out, that is Java is passed by value or a passed by reference. Just try to get an answer for this question, and we will going to discuss this answer for this question before starting of tomorrow's class. Okay. Now, we are familiar with Java, basics of Java. What is Java? Now, when we discuss about web development, most of the times what we are doing, we are developing a services which are being exposed over the internet. Right? Now, I still remember once the question is being asked to me that what are the web services? The basic definition of web services. So you can expect such kind of questions also in the interview. Okay. And when you are not able to answer such type of questions in the interview, then it puts a bad impression on the interviewer. Okay. Just try to keep such a definitions in your mind. Services which are exposed to the internet for the programmatic access are known as web services. This term is very clear. Services which are exposed to the internet. Okay, I am having a service. I'll explain what is a service. I am having a service. It is being exposed to the internet for the programmatic access. Now, let me explain this definition properly. Suppose I have written a piece of code. What is application? Application is also a piece of code only, right? Application is also a piece of code which I have written over here. Now, when I expose this piece of code over the internet so that other people out there can also use my code and get benefits which I have implemented in my application, right? So this is a service, that means my application. When I have exposed my application over the internet so that other person, that is client, can use this application, then it is known as web service. My piece of code which a client can also use. I'll explain this word with this example. What is programmatic access? Okay. In or if you won't get a clear idea about what are the web services, just consider example. Whenever you are playing any game, if you have played a PUBG or any game, any kind of game, then you got an option after playing that game, share on the Facebook, right? My question to you all is that, is game implements this share on Facebook feature on its own? No, it is going to use the web service of Facebook of sharing anything on Facebook, right? So if we are having a Facebook over here, it is exposing feature of share. Now I'm having a game over here. Now game is going to use this feature in its application. So what is the benefit of web service? Web service provide the benefit that we don't need to implement this functionality again and again because it is being implemented by someone else. So whenever we are going to develop things, just keep in this thing in your mind that most of the times we use a functionality which is being developed by something else. For example, if I am making a food delivery app like Zomato, then I need a Google Maps. It won't make sense to develop my maps on my own when I can use a map which is being developed by someone else, and that also to such a good extent. Okay, so in development, this carry a lot importance, web services, because most of the times we are using these web services in our application. Okay, now we are familiar with the web services. What is the difference between these two? HTTP github.com and HTTP API github.com. When we are going to make a call to this URL, then we are going to get back a HTML response. Why we are going to get a HTML response? Because when we are making a request to this API, then it is being considered that the one who is making a request to this URL is a human or a alive person. So a live person won't like to see something like written in over here like services, this name is this name is. The individual likes a content. Like if it is being designed in a proper way, then human prefer that thing only. Okay, so that is the main reason that when we call this URL, it returns the HTML page in response, and when we are going to call this API or this URL, then it is being considered that the one who is making a request to this URL is also a piece of code. For example, if I'm making a food delivery app, then when I make call to this API of Google, then what I am doing, my code is going to make a call to that URL, something like this URL. Then it will be going to get a result in the form of, it returns the result in the form of JSON, XML, and etc. In the data format, not in the HTML form. And when we get a piece of code, a code is making a call to a URL and getting a piece of code in return as well. Okay, so this is the main difference between these two, that in this we are going to get a HTML page in this response, and in this we are going to get a data in response, and our application can pass that data as per our need. Okay, so I hope so you might not confuse now that what are difference between these two URLs. Most of the times documentation of any website or any, if we use a API of Zomato, then it will be given in the form of api.zomato, in the form of this syntax. Okay, if in a web development you are going to see this thing a lot. Okay, now we are familiar with what are the web services. Now their web services can be of two types. The first one is SOAP, and the second one is let me change the color of pen because I don't personally don't like this red color. Okay, so the first one is of type SOAP and the second one is of type RESTful. Now, what is the difference between these two? Again, this question is again asked to me in one of my interviews that what is the basic बिल्कुल basic kind of basic difference between these two, a one liner difference. The one liner difference between these two is that SOAP is a protocol. SOAP is a protocol, and RESTful or REST, generally we say REST APIs. You can relate APIs with the web services, REST web services or REST API. We can call API as web services as well. What is REST web services or REST APIs? REST APIs is a architectural style, architectural pattern or a style. Okay, just keep this thing in your mind. It is not a protocol. Yes, it also has some rules, but it is an architectural style. Now you will understand this what is this architectural style means. First of all, let us consider these 3 points of SOAP protocol, because we are not going to discuss more about this SOAP, because nowadays everyone is using a RESTful architecture only. Okay. So SOAP is being maintained by design and maintained and designed by a committee. There are group of people who maintains and design these protocols for this SOAP API. And if any web service want, if I'm having these set of rules, then any API to be known as SOAP API should follow all these 4 points. Even if we won't follow last point, then also it won't be considered SOAP API. So it has some set defined of rules, and each SOAP web service should follow each of these rules which are there in this set. If it won't follow even a single rule, then it won't be considered as SOAP API. And nowadays, no one uses this SOAP APIs. This is generally for a kind of information to you guys. If anyone asks you that what is a SOAP API. Okay, if you use REST APIs, then what are the REST APIs? There is no committee which manages, which is there to say that, okay, your API is REST and other person's API is not RESTful. Everyone's API is can be considered RESTful. And when we talk API is RESTful, we say how much RESTful it is. Either it is following all the properties which is being defined by this RESTful architectural style or not. If there are some points in this architectural style, suppose actually we are having 6 points in this architectural style. If my API is following these 2 points, then it is considered as RESTful API, but considered as less RESTful. And if any API is following these 5 points over here, then it is being considered as more API. It's kind of a funny term. It is more RESTful and it is less RESTful. You will understand this term when we discuss about the architectural style of these RESTful. But this is the main difference between these two. That we can call each API as RESTful, but how much RESTful it is being defined by this architectural style. So the goal is to make a service as much as RESTful as possible. Okay, now RESTful is an architectural style, and our web services can be RESTful, and how much RESTful it is defined by this architectural style. The constraints which RESTful web services provide. RESTful web services, or we can say this architectural style provides. The first one is our API should follow client server model. I think most of you are in 4th year, and some people are also working professional as well. So you must be knowing that what is a client server architecture. So let us just skip that point. Now we will be going to consider these 2 points in a same go. Now the basic architecture of any web application is something like this. We have a client over here. First, client passes a request to a DNS server. DNS server returns IP of an application to which actually the request should be made. Then this goes over this. The client make a request to a URL. Now the request will be diverted to the IP. After being diverted to the IP, it is being passed to a load balancer. It is being passed to a load balancer. Why we are using load balancer? Because in our application, we have multiple application servers. If in our application, I have only one application server, then it cannot answer to each and every request which is being made to me. You all know that there are application servers for Google, and there are huge rooms for them because they have a lot more number of servers present over there, right? Okay. So when the request is being made, so load balancer decides to which application server this request should be passed, and it is being decided on the basis of the load on these application servers. Okay, so it is being decided by whichsoever is having a least load, the request is being diverted to that application server. Now, this is the layered architecture, and this application server are being connected to the databases. Connected to the So if we are following this architecture, then it is considered as RESTful. Now we are familiar clear with this point. What is this statelessness? Statelessness basically means in a request we should not have any state. For example, if we are having any chatbot, if it passes hi to the chatbot, it returns some result to me, right? There is a chatbot present over there. When it passes hi, it returns as hi, I'm passing over there. It asks for my name. If I passed Chaman over here, then it will be going to return hi Chaman. Then consider every time I make request to the chatbot, if situation is something like that, this that the chatbot again and again ask me that what is your name, what is your name, what is your name, and it is kind of we are not going to use that chatbot, right? So in that case, we are maintaining a state with the application server that okay, I am Chamandeep, and now whatever your response will depend upon this state. So when a request is of stateful type, then it is not a RESTful. Your request should be stateless. For example, from a client, I am passing two variables to be plus to have a additions. For example, I have an application of addition, a calculator application. So request is being made to me. I have to return a result to this client. So when I am returning a result to the client, now my result won't depend upon the request which is being made previously. So if my response won't depend on the request which is being made previously, then it is known as statelessness request. Okay, I hope so. This word statelessness is being clear to you guys. And our response should be cacheable, that it can be stored in some cache if we want. For example, if the same request is coming again to me and I have to fetch this, I have to make call to the DB every time the request is coming to me, then it is going to cost me a latency. So in order to avoid this latency, we can use cache because cache are a lot more fast. Okay, so we should be able to store a result in a caches. Now we are familiar with these 4 points. If our API follow these 4 points, then it is a RESTful. What is a uniform resource identifier? It basically means that a request must be of type get, update, delete, create. A basic CRUD operations. Create, read, update, and delete. A request must be of type create, post, put, and delete. If it is of these type, then it is being comes under this point. And code on demand. I think most of you won't be able to understand code on demand till now. You all have gone through this code on demand, but you have never realized this thing. When let me do one thing. Let me clear all this so that I can explain this code on demand to you guys. One second. What is code on demand? Code on demand basically means now suppose, for example, we are going to give any test. Then there are sometimes proctoring system which proctoring. Pardon me for the spelling. I'm not so much good at these spellings. Suppose there is some system which is going to record your video or analyze your motions, right? So if you open a test, then some application starts running in a background, right? So what how from where that application comes, because our Google Chrome is not having that application. So when we click on the start test button, then it make calls to the server of the application which is going to conduct this test. Then this application returns a piece of code to the Google Chrome, and Google Chrome runs this piece of code in the background so that your motions can be detected. A machine learning, a kind of machine learning model. So a request should be able to return a code as well. Most of you have seen that. Okay, it asks for some time. It asks for your test will be going to start in 5 minutes or in a 10 seconds or 20 seconds. In the back end, this stuff is going on. Okay. I hope so. All these points are being clear to you, and you can answer to anyone if someone asks you what is a RESTful architectural style. So these 4 points are being considered under RESTful architectural style. Okay, and we should try that REST API should follow maximum of these points. Okay. Most of the times, our application cannot follow all these points, but try to follow all these points. Okay, now we are familiar with what we are going to do. We are going to make a web services in our application, right? Now the question comes: there are many frameworks out there which we can use. Okay, till now, before discussing this, till now, uh, is anyone having any doubts? Which I can answer in a moment. Anyone having any doubt? Okay, so no one is having any doubt. So let us just continue. So why we have decided to use a Spring only? Spring or Spring Boot. I'll tell you the difference between these two, Spring and Spring Boot. So what is the main reason why we have choose the Spring Boot as a tool which we are going to use in application development? These are the 4 reasons why we generally uh, emphasize on using a Spring as a tool. The first one is inversion of control, aspect-oriented programming, data access, and Spring MSC. I am pretty sure that you won't understand these things with the name itself. Uh, in order to understand inversion of control, let us consider this example. Over here. Now, what does this example shows to you? This one. That there is a boy. He sets some reminder in his mobile phone. Now his reminders rangs and he says it done. This is also done. Done. Now, instead of doing remembering this thing in his mind, what he have done? He have given a control of this thing to his phone. That it is a responsibility of phone to remember and just ping me whenever I have to do this work. So this is the main example of inversion of control. What does the inversion of control basically means? Inversion of control means that instead of doing the stuff myself, I'll pass this responsibility to someone else to do this thing for me. Because I can make mistakes if I have some work to do. And if machine can also do this work, so I'll try to do work. Sorry, I have written a code. I'm so obsessed with codes. Work. So I have some work to do. I have given this responsibility to this machine. Okay, you are responsible for doing this work. I have passed the control to the machine. When I pass my control to the machine, then it is known as inversion of control. That instead of me doing this thing myself, I have passed my control to machine. Now machine will be going to do this work. And I can give you an example in how we use this thing in a Spring Boot application and why this thing is being preferred also. Every time in our application, what we generally do, if we have to create an instance of class A, we generally write something like this, new A. Right. Now in a Spring Boot, when we are going to discuss example of a Spring Boot in a tomorrow's class, you will be going to see I'll not going to make an instance of any class. Most of the times I am not going to make an instance of class. Why? Because I have given a Spring Boot this responsibility that you are responsible for creating a object of this class. Okay, so Spring Boot internally, if we are having any class, and Spring will automatically create instance of this class. And just remember one thing: by default, Spring creates singleton instance of this class. That means each time this class is being called, same instance is going to pass. There is a way in which you can create a non different type of instance also, but most of the times by default singleton instance is only being created. And how this thing happens, because nothing happens automatically. So what you have to do, you have to write this thing over your class. These are known as annotations in a Spring Boot. We are going to discuss about annotations, but I recommend you guys to read few things about what are the annotations. Okay, so just read these things, that what are the annotation and which annotation is for which thing. I'll try to explain it side by side when I use annotation in a code tomorrow. So just try to read what are the annotations. Okay. So when we have provided this annotation with our class, then it is the responsibility of Spring Boot to create an instance of this class. I can simply use dependency injection in order to get a instance of that class. So it is a role of dependency injection. There is a concept known as dependency injection. The dependency injection controls the getting this instance from the creation, from the memory wherever it is present to me. I have to just annotate it with the auto void. When I annotate it with the auto void, Spring automatically injects this dependency to me. Okay. And what is the application context? Application context is a thing which manages the creation of object. Okay. As I have said that Spring itself manages the creation of object, and what inside the Spring manages that is this application context. Application context manages this thing. Okay, so now you are familiar with what is the inversion of control. So if you write Spring Boot in your resume, then anyone can ask you this question, that what is the inversion of control, and I hope so you can explain what is the inversion of control to the interviewer now. In case, see, many times the things are done to show someone. Don't have this attitude. Study things or gain concepts in the way that you are going, someday you are going to build your own stuff. Okay, it makes a lot more difference when you have this attitude, that you are learning a concept in order to develop something for yourself, right? Okay, so just try to have this kind of attitude, that you will be going to develop one day. You will be going to develop something yourself, and how you will be going to develop something like which could make you a billionaire, when you have good control over a good command or a good understanding of these concepts. These small concepts make a lot more difference. Trust me, these make a lot more difference when it comes to an interview part. Okay. We are we have understood inversion of control. Now, what is this aspect-oriented programming? Now, it is very simple. When you try to search over Google, I think there whatever you are going to get there, you might won't understand it there. I'm having a class A with me. Okay, I'm having a class A with me. Inside this class, I'm having a variable private A, private B. Okay, so if you are bit familiar or you have seen codes of Java, then you have seen this scenario. This scenario is known as encapsulation, that we have encapsulated these variables inside this class, and no one outside this class can call these variables, even if they create an instance of this class also. So if I create an instance of this class, suppose I'm having object as instance of this class, then also I cannot call these variables because it is a property of class. So how would I use these variables? By using getters and setters. The function of getter is to return the value of this variable, and the function of setter is to set the value of this variable. I hope so you get an idea of why getters and setters are being used. In case you are new to Java, just try to see any example of any class. You will easily able to see what are the getters and setters. It is not a big deal to get this thing done. what is a big deal is, if you are having a getters and setters over here, now in our application we are going to have hell lot of classes or models in our application. For timing now, let us consider it as classes only. We are having lot of classes in our application, right? Now if we declare getter and setter for each class, then it is a kind of redundant code. I can have a piece of code in my application which can do this thing for me. Okay, so when we have these kinds of redundant codes in our application, then what we do, we use certain types of annotation. And what does these annotations do? For example, for a timing now, I'll tell you, this is a annotation for getter. We use these kinds of annotation in our application. Now, what is the role of this annotation? The role of this annotation is to get the code from the place where it is being written and place that code over here in this class. It is a role of this annotation. So when we use these kinds of annotations which which prevents a redundant code in an application, then it is known as aspect oriented programming. We write a code in application which is necessary, not a redundant code. So this is what known as aspect oriented programming. Data access. Now see, there could be two ways to access the data. There could be two ways to access the data. Either you can create an instance of a server, create an instance of a class which connects you to the server, and then write SQL queries to in order to fetch data from the server. And the second way is to use API, inbuilt API. What you have to do, you have to just import that. I'll tell you all the things how to import the things in a Spring Boot application. Suppose you can use this API in your application and you have to do nothing with making a query to the server. You don't need to care about creation of instances and all those things in your application. Okay, so in a Spring Boot, we are going to use JPA in order to store our data in the server or fetch the data from the server. Okay, so this is the main role of JPA. JPA is a Java specification which is used to manage a relational data in an application. Okay, if I'm saying that JPA, Java Persistence API, now API is also a piece of code, right? It is also a piece of code. If we are using that piece of code, then this piece of code must be having implementation somewhere, right? But JPA is not an implementation. JPA is not a framework. It is a concept only. It specifies that if someone is going to use this Java Persistence API, then I'll make this thing more clear in a moment. So, suppose JPA is a concept. It defines a concept. Okay. In a Spring Boot application, if you want to use JPA, then you must be having these number of these classes, this class, and this class. I won't tell you the name of classes currently because you might got confused. It will tell you, okay, you should have an implementation of this class. You should have an implementation of this class. You should have an implementation of this class. If you are going to implement a JPA, but who is going to implement a JPA? JPA is a concept only. And if we want to use a JPA library in our application, then someone have to implement this thing, right? So that thing is being done by ORM, Object Relational Mapping Vendors. And in application, by default, we are going to use a Hibernate. Now what happens? We are having an application over here, right? Now JPA is a concept, right? This is a concept only. It is having, suppose it is having a interfaces, which defines, okay, you must be having this method, and this method. Now someone have to implement those methods, and that is being done by Hibernate. Okay, so Hibernate provides the implementation of this JPA, and when we use JPA, actually you uses Hibernate. And how we uses Hibernate, it is being told in tomorrow's class. So I hope so you get the idea why we use this, why we generally prefer to use Spring API. Spring. Now these are the things which are being provided. I'll talk about Spring MVC while we create an API, because it will be much clearer when I discuss this thing when creation of a API. If you are working professional, you might have heard Spring MVCs, Model View Controller Architectures. Okay, these are the things which are also present in Spring. Why Spring Boot only? Spring Boot is an extension of Spring. Okay, so if I'm having a Spring over here, Spring Boot is its extension only with less boiler code. When we create a Spring application, we have to write a boilerplate code. That boilerplate code is something like, it's a configuration type of code that you, if you are using a Spring Boot application, you have to write this code. So Spring Boot avoid that code, because, and how it avoid that code? By using a auto configuration. Spring Boot uses a auto configuration, and it provides a configuration by default. Okay, so I hope so you get a idea what are the things which we are mostly doing in a web development part, why we use a Spring Boot tool only, the reason why we use Spring Boot only, the basic concepts of Java. If I am talking about and for example here only I am talking about encapsulation, then you are aware of encapsulation. In case you are new to Java, then you get a basic idea of encapsulation, not a exact idea, because I have not discussed about the examples, but you get a basic idea. Now you have some base to study on, right? So this is my main aim for today. And one more thing which we are going to do in the 5 minutes. I'm going to tell you. One second. In the 5 minutes, I'm going to tell you how you can create a Spring Boot application. But the prerequisites are, you must be having a JDK installed in your system. And the second thing, I personally prefer to use IntelliJ. If you install IntelliJ and JDK, then we are good to go. I'm assuming that you are having a JDK installed in your system and you are having a IntelliJ also installed in your system. In case you are having both of these installed in your system, then how can you create a Java application? At least you can start a application. So now I'm going to tell you that thing. Okay. So one second. Let me share. Stop sharing the screen. One second. I'm coming in a moment. Just don't leave the session. We are going to cover this thing, that how you can create a Java application. Okay, so let me share a Chrome tab now in order to let you know. Spring initializer. Yes, this is fine. Is my screen visible? Yes, you. Today we have discussed about the theory part. So, and tomorrow we are going to cover the creation of REST API only. Okay. So we will be going to cover how you can create a REST API, how you can connect your API with the database, how actually the API is working. So this is the main thing which most of the times we are going to do in a web development. Okay. Is my screen visible? Is my screen visible? Please try watching the video again. Okay, my screen is visible now. Okay. Okay. So if my screen is visible, let me explain how you can. First of all, go to this. This is a one of way in to create a Spring application. You can go to the uh, this URL. After going to this URL, what you have to do? You have to select the Maven project. I'm going to discuss tomorrow what is a Maven. You can select Maven and the Spring Boot type version which you want. Just keep it by default, which is there. After having that, you can write a artifact. Artifact is a kind of name of the project. For example, we are going to have a name as Java webinar. Okay, I think so. We cannot write anything in Java webinar over here. And the packaging type is Java. Now, what is the packaging type? Packaging type is the thing when we are going to deploy our application on a cloud or anywhere, then we need a packaging. We need a file which we can deploy over the internet. So for that, we are going to use a jar type packaging and your Java version, the JDK which you have installed. For I have installed all type of Java versions for the timing now. Let us being used 11 only. And after having all these things set over here, you can also add a dependencies from here. For example, tomorrow what we are going to build, we need a Spring Web dependency, uh, one dependency for the MySQL connector. MySQL connector, we are going to connect our application with the MySQL, Lombok, this dependency. These are main dependencies which we are going to require in a tomorrow's session. And after doing so, generate your application from here. When you click on this generate application, you are going to have this folder in your system, and just unzip this folder and post this unzipping. I'll be going to discuss tomorrow how we can we will going to use this folder, or how we can create application uh, in our backend. Can I do xflips? Okay. So Siddharth, are you there?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
here.
Hey Siddharth, are you there?
Yeah, hey, how's it going?
Great, bro. Great. Today I have discussed the basic theory part, and I have discussed about the how we will going to initialize our Spring Boot project. And tomorrow we are going to have a hands-on session. Like we are going to create a REST API.
Okay, so tomorrow it's gonna get more crazier then, I suppose.
Yes, yes, yes. Today is the theory part. Like we must be familiar with the theory. If we have to do a direct hands-on, then most of the people are not going to get what I am writing over there, because I know these things, right?
Sure.
I can code directly as well, but you people
Yeah,
need these things as well.
yeah, basic knowledge never hurts, I believe, right? In
Yes,
fact, if someone already has this knowledge, it was more like a revision to those guys. So, yep, tomorrow we'll be doing the coding part, I believe.
right, right.
All right. So, I hope in case you still have any queries, guys, you can simply check the link below. You can fill the form. And we also have a special course on Java backend for someone who really likes Java and who is, motivated to know more about Java. We have industry experts over there teaching you. And I saw actually many comments about projects. So with that course, you get access to 3 projects. We'll be building real life projects as well. So we can check on the course. It's the link is live. And other than that, we'll meet tomorrow. It's probably gonna be much better and much superior to this one. And in case again you have any queries, you can fill the form, right? So thank you guys. Be safe, keep hustling, and see you tomorrow. Thank you.